If you've played any kind of team sports, you would know that one of the golden rules, regardless of the sport, is you don't show up your teammates, especially if you're a rookie. I told you last week Dalton Rushing was a problem, and half the people chimed in and said, no, love his character, love him, he's good for this team, good for the chemistry, and the other half said, no, can't stand him, get rid of him. In my opinion, this is a back-to-back champs. You just need status quo. You need to keep the same chemistry and not mess it up. I don't know if you saw last night, but Dalton Rushing showed up the greatest baseball player of all time multiple times, and you could tell Shohei was getting frustrated. Shohei wanted to challenge a couple strike calls, and Dalton Rushing told him not to. And on the second one, you could verbally hear Dalton Rushing screaming low. And by the way, Shohei was right. The other thing I heard is that Shohei's ERA when Dalton Rushing is catching is over 5. And with Will Smith, it's under 1. So take that for what it's worth. Regardless, I stand by my...
Shohei Ohtani is the calmest guy in baseball. Nothing rattles him. So when he gets visibly frustrated on the mound, you know something went sideways. On Wednesday night against the Twins, his own catcher Dalton Rushing kept getting crossed up, a run scored, and Ohtani had words for him. All Rushing could do was nod and take it. So I want to know before we start, was Ohtani right to take over and call his own game, or should he have let his young catcher work through it? Drop your take in the comments.
The Dodgers got the win and swept Minnesota, but the visible disconnect between Shohei Ohtani and Dalton Rushing stole the spotlight, becoming impossible to ignore.
Now let's get into what actually happened. Let's set the scene first, because the context here is everything. For most of this season, Ohtani had one catcher behind the plate when he pitched, and that was Will Smith. And that pairing was magic. Over his first 10 starts with Smith catching, Ohtani had a .74 ERA with 67 strikeouts in 61 innings. That's not good. That's absurd. A sub-1 ERA over 10 starts is the kind of number that wins you a Cy Young. The two of them were on the same page every single pitch, and it showed. Then, Smith got hurt. He landed on the injured list with neck inflammation, which left Dalton Rushing as the main catcher. And here's where the trouble starts. Rushing is young. He's a second-round pick from 2022, and he's only in his second big league season. Catching is hard enough on its own. Catching the most unique pitcher on the planet, a guy who throws triple digits and has a full bag of nasty stuff. When you barely know each other yet, that's a brutal assignment, and the results have shown it. In 3 starts with Rushing behind the plate, Ohtani's ERA jumped from .74 all the way up to 4.34. That's a massive drop-off, and it's not because Ohtani suddenly forgot how to pitch. It's because the two of them aren't speaking the same language out there yet. And on Wednesday night, in front of a sold-out crowd at Target Field, that gap blew up in the worst possible inning. Here's how it went down.
Shohei Ohtani and Dalton Rushing were not on the same page tonight, as Shohei was asking to challenge this call and Rushing's like, no, that's low, and the same thing goes this time, except Shohei didn't even look for his advice. He just straight up challenged it on his own. He took matters into his own hands, and Rushing was trying to tell him no, it was down, but Shohei inevitably was right. Dave Roberts had to talk to Dalton Rushing in the dugout. It was a frustrating night for him. Shohei had to talk to him on the mound one-on-one because they were just not on the same page, and safe to say, Rushing was none too pleased.
The bottom of the second inning got ugly fast. 3 hits off Ohtani loaded the bases with 1 out. Already a mess. Then came the moment everyone is talking about. Rushing was expecting an off-speed pitch. Ohtani threw a fastball, a 101 mph fastball. The two of them were not on the same page. The ball got past Rushing's glove, shot toward the backstop, and a run came across to score. Rushing got charged with a passed ball, which made one of the runs unearned. And this is where you saw something you almost never see from Ohtani. He winced. His shoulders slumped as he watched the run score. This is a man who is famous for showing zero emotion. He strikes out the side, blank face. He hits a 450-foot homer, blank face. But here he is on the mound, visibly deflated, because his catcher just called for the wrong pitch with the bases loaded. That tells you how much it bothered him. When Ohtani lets the frustration show, it's serious.
Shohei Ohtani and Dalton Rushing were not on the same page tonight, as Shohei was asking to challenge this call and Rushing's like, no, that's low, and the same thing goes this time, except Shohei didn't even look for his advice. He just straight up challenged it on his own. He took matters into his own hands, and Rushing was trying to tell him no, it was down, but Shohei inevitably was right. Dave Roberts had to talk to Dalton Rushing in the dugout. It was a frustrating night for him. Shohei had to talk to him on the mound one-on-one because they were just not on the same page, and safe safe to say Rushing was none too pleased.
Now let's talk about the abs part, because this is the moment the clip really takes off. Abs is the challenge system, where a player can ask the computer to check a ball or strike call. And in this same stretch, Ohtani threw a low pitch that got called a ball. He wanted to challenge it. Rushing did not. Rushing immediately shook his head and seemed to object, thinking the pitch was too low. But Ohtani wasn't having it. He tapped the top of his hat to challenge before Rushing could even wave it off. So they challenge it. And what happens? Ohtani was right by 0.3 of an inch, according to StatCast. 0.3 of an inch. The pitch his catcher swore was too low actually clipped the zone, and Ohtani knew it. He overruled his catcher, challenged the call, and got it overturned by the smallest margin you can imagine. That's not luck. That's a guy who knows exactly where his pitches are going, trusting himself over the man who's supposed to be guiding him. And it worked. The successful challenge flipped the count in his favor.
If you've played any kind of team sports, you would know that one of the golden rules, regardless of the sport, is you don't show up your teammates, especially if you're a rookie. I told you last week Dalton Rushing was a problem, and half the people chimed in and said, no, love his character, love him, he's good for this team, good for the chemistry, and the other half said, no, can't stand him, get rid of him. In my opinion, this is a back-to-back champs. You just need status quo. You need to keep the same chemistry and not mess it up. I don't know if you saw last night, but Dalton Rushing showed up the greatest baseball player of all time multiple times, and you could tell Shohei was getting frustrated. Shohei wanted to challenge a couple strike calls, and Dalton Rushing told him not to. And on the second one, you could verbally hear Dalton Rushing screaming low. And by the way, Shohei was right. The other thing I heard is that Shohei's ERA when Dalton
Put yourself in Rushing's cleats for a second. You just got crossed up on a fastball that scored a run. Then you told the best pitcher in the world not to challenge a call, and he challenged it anyway and was proven right in front of a packed stadium. That is a rough few minutes, and it clearly got to him. After that inning, Ohtani had words for Rushing. He was intense. He spoke a little English, looked dead serious, and Rushing pretty much just nodded and listened. There wasn't much else he could do. When Shohei Ohtani pulls you aside to tell you the two of you need to be better, you don't argue. You nod and you take it. And that's exactly what happened. Then came the dugout. And this is the part that really shows how big a moment this was. Rushing went back to the bench and he was clearly crashing out. Just absolutely frustrated with himself and how the night was going. And the Dodgers did not leave him alone with it. Manager Dave Roberts had a long talk with him, with his arm around him the whole time. And Roberts wasn't the only one. Freddie Freeman and pitching coach Mark Pryor came over too. The team's mental skills coach was part of it as well. Emotional guy. That's the heart of it. Rushing wears his emotions on his sleeve, and on a night when nothing was going right, those emotions took over. He wasn't mad at Ohtani, he was mad at himself. And to his credit, Rushing owned it completely after the game. He didn't make excuses. He said it was pretty embarrassing, that his teammates always have his back, and that needing that kind of support as a grown man was a tough pill to swallow. That's a guy being brutally honest about a bad night. You have to respect that. And it really was a bad night for him at the plate too. Rushing went 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts and a foul pop out. So he's getting crossed up behind the plate, getting overruled on challenges, and then going up to bat and striking out over and over. When it rains, it pours. No wonder he was crashing out in the dugout. Everything that could go wrong for him in one game basically did. Now here's where the story flips, and this is the part that makes it an Ohtani highlight instead of just a rough night. Ohtani decided he was done with the back and forth. He stopped waiting for the signs to work. Starting in the third inning, he began calling his own pitches, and the result was immediate. He struck out the side in that third inning, just took the wheel and overpowered everybody. And it didn't stop there. Ohtani finished with 8 strikeouts over 6 innings and got the win, and he didn't allow another run after that messy second. So once he took control, the leak was completely plugged. A rough start turned into another dominant Ohtani outing, all because he decided to handle it himself. He finished his start with a 1.58 ERA on the night. After the game, Ohtani explained his thinking, and it was pure leadership. He said there are a couple ways to communicate. One is with words. The other is by example, by taking charge and showing Rushing what kind of pitcher he is. That's such an Ohtani way to put it. He's not throwing his catcher under the bus. He's saying, the fastest way to get us on the same page is for me to lead and let him follow. No drama, no blame. Just take the wheel and show the kid how it's done. And here's a detail that makes Ohtani look even better. He wasn't even at full strength. He's been pitching through soreness in his left knee and a blister on his right middle finger this month. A blister on your throwing hand can mess with your grip and your control, which might even explain some of the cross-ups. So this guy is dealing with a banged up knee, a blister on his pitching hand, a brand new catcher he's not synced with, a run scoring on a passed ball, and an emotional battery mate melting down behind him. And he still struck out 8, allowed nothing after the second, and won the game. That's not normal. That's a different level of competitor. Now I want to be fair here, because it would be easy to dunk on Rushing and call it a day. But let's give the kid his due. He was a top 100 prospect, he got off to a hot start this season, and he's shown real power. The Dodgers clearly believe in his bat. The problem right now isn't talent, it's that he's been handed the hardest catching job in baseball, learning a once-in-a-generation pitcher on the fly while Will Smith is hurt. Almost any young catcher would struggle in that spot. He's being asked to do something incredibly hard, and he's doing it in front of millions of people, and yeah, sometimes it falls apart. Roberts actually framed the pitch calling switch in a really smart way, and it takes some heat off Rushing. He said he didn't think Ohtani taking over was a blow to Rushing's ego. He thought it actually freed him up. And he made a point that every baseball fan should remember. The pitcher always has the last say and can call his own game. So this wasn't Ohtani disrespecting his catcher. This is a normal baseball thing. When the pitcher and catcher aren't clicking, the pitcher can take over, and a lot of the time that's the right call. Roberts said once they made that decision, it was pretty clean after that. So the story isn't really pitcher versus catcher, it's a young guy having a rough night, a superstar stepping up to carry him, and a whole team rallying around the kid in the dugout so he didn't fall apart. That's actually a pretty good look for the Dodgers when you frame it right. Nobody threw Rushing to the Wolves. They surrounded him, talked him through it, and their ace literally took the game over so the team could still win. And when they did. Let's not forget the bottom line here. The Dodgers beat the Twins 4-3, and Ohtani didn't just carry the pitching, he carried the offense too. He drove in a run with a single that sparked a 3-run third inning, the rally that put the Dodgers ahead for good. Max Muncy drove Ohtani in, and Alex Call added a sacrifice fly. So Ohtani created the go-ahead rally with his bat, then slammed the door with his arm. On a night his catcher was struggling, Ohtani basically did everything himself. Pitched, hit, led, and won. There was even a milestone tucked into this game that got a little lost in all the drama. Mookie Betts hit his 300th career home run. That's a huge career marker for one of the best players of his generation, and it almost became a footnote because the Ohtani and Rushing story was so wild. That tells you how much was packed into one night at Target Field, and the bigger picture for the Dodgers could not be better. The win completed a 3-game sweep of the Twins and pushed them to a Major League best 52-29, with a 9-game lead in their division. So while this one moment looked messy, the team is rolling. They're the best team in baseball, they just swept a series on the road, and their two-way superstar is pitching through injuries and still dominating. A rough second inning with a new catcher is a tiny speed bump on a season that's going great. So what do we make of all this? A few things. First, Ohtani's value goes way beyond the box score. We already knew he could hit and pitch better than anyone alive, but this game showed his leadership. He took a chaotic situation, a young catcher coming apart, a run already in, frustration boiling over, and he calmly took control and steadied the entire game. That's the stuff that doesn't show up in the stats, but wins championships. Second, this is a temporary problem, and it's a good one to have. Will Smith is on the injured list, not gone forever. When he comes back, Ohtani gets his perfect partner back behind the plate, and that .74 era pairing returns. In the meantime, Rushing is getting a crash course in catching the best pitcher on earth, and even painful nights like this one will make him better. The Dodgers are deep enough to survive a few bumpy starts while their ace and his backup catcher figure each other out. Third, give Rushing some grace. The kid owned his bad night, took the criticism, leaned on his teammates, and said he's going to be better. That's the right response. He didn't sulk or point fingers, he looked in the mirror, he even said straight up that he's going to be better. Young players have nights like this. The good ones learn from them, and he's surrounded by veterans like Freeman and a manager like Roberts who clearly care about getting him through it. But let's be honest about the star of the night, because it's not close. This was the Shohei Ohtani show from start to finish. He got crossed up, he got frustrated, he had words for his catcher, he overruled him on a challenge and was proven right by a hair, he took over the pitch calling, he struck out the side, he sparked the go-ahead rally with his bat, and he won the game while pitching hurt. One man, one night. That's why people call him the best to ever do it, and it's hard to argue. The next time someone tells you Ohtani is just just a stats machine, show them this game. Show them the guy who took a falling apart situation and personally dragged his team to a win, then refused to say a single bad word about the young catcher who struggled. That's not just talent, that's the whole package. And that's why, even on a night that started with a passed ball and a stare down, Ohtani walked off the mound a winner once again. So Ohtani had words for Rushing, took over the game, and carried the Dodgers to another win. If you love getting the real story behind these moments, smash that like button and subscribe so you never miss the next Ohtani breakdown. And tell me in the comments, can Rushing turn it around, or do they need Will Smith back fast? See you next time.